The holidays are a time for joy, laughter, and togetherness. But what happens when tragedy strikes during the season of cheer? From catastrophic earthquakes to deadly storms and unthinkable human acts, the Christmas season has seen its share of heartbreak. Join us as we count down the top 7 most shocking disasters that unfolded during what should have been the happiest time of the year. Don't look away. This is a journey through history you won't forget. December 26, 2004. Dawn breaks over the Indian Ocean, promising another day of peace and beauty, but beneath the surface, a terrible secret lies in wait. A massive earthquake, a magnitude 9.1 tremor, rocks the region, but this is only the beginning. There is no warning. No time to prepare. In an instant, paradise is transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror. Walls of water, some reaching heights of over 30 feet, smash into the unsuspecting coastlines of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and beyond. Villages and towns are swept away as if they were made of sand, families are torn apart, lives are extinguished. The ocean, once a source of life and beauty, has become a force of unimaginable destruction. Over 230,000 souls are lost to its unforgiving fury, a staggering toll that will forever mark this day in history. Darwin, Australia, Christmas Eve, 1974. While families prepared for the holidays, a monster was brewing offshore. Cyclone Tracy, a small but incredibly intense category for a cyclone, had Darwin in its crosshairs. Unlike larger storms that spread their energy, Tracy's compact size focused its destructive power directly on the city. Winds of over 150 mph, imagine a Formula One car airborne, ripped through Darwin, turning the holiday into a nightmare. Christmas morning revealed a scene of utter devastation. 71 lives were lost, a tragic number in such a small community. Over 70% of Darwin's buildings were destroyed. Imagine returning home to find nothing left, your house, your belongings, your memories, all gone. The devastation was so complete that a mass evacuation was ordered. Almost 2/3 of Darwin's population left the city. Rebuilding would be a monumental task, both physically and emotionally. Today, Darwin stands as a testament to human resilience. Rebuilt and revitalized, the city has not forgotten the lessons of Cyclone Tracy. It's a story of loss, but also of hope, and the unyielding spirit of a community determined to rebuild in the face of adversity. For over 2,000 years, the ancient citadel of Ban stood as a testament to human ingenuity and a jewel of the Silk Road, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was a symbol of Iran's rich history and cultural heritage, but in a matter of seconds, this ancient wonder would be reduced to rubble. December 26, 2003, 5:26 a.m., a catastrophic 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck Ban. The shaking lasted just 12 seconds, but it was enough to level the city. The ancient citadel, built of unreinforced mud brick, crumbled into dust. The devastation was catastrophic. Estimates of the death toll range from 26,000 to 34,000, with tens of thousands more injured. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and many people were left without food, water, or shelter. In the wake of the tragedy, the world responded. International aid poured into Ban, and rescue workers from around the globe joined the desperate search for survivors. The Ban earthquake was a tragedy of immense proportions, but from the dust and rubble, a new Ban has emerged, a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit. Afghanistan, 1979, a nation steeped in history, caught in the grip of the Cold War. The Soviet Union, driven by a desire to expand its sphere of influence, made a decision that would ignite a decade of brutal conflict and leave an indelible scar on the Afghan people. The Soviets installed a communist regime, hoping to modernize Afghanistan and secure its southern border, but they grossly underestimated the deep-seated nationalism and religious fervor of the Afghan people. Resistance flickered, then ignited into a fiery rebellion. The Mujahideen, a diverse coalition of Afghan fighters, united by their fierce love of their homeland, took to the mountains, prepared to fight a long and bloody guerrilla war. The Soviets unleashed their military might, but the Mujahideen, masters of the rugged terrain, were a force to be reckoned with. The war became a brutal stalemate, a bloody back and forth that claimed the lives of thousands on both sides. I read a story about a young Soviet conscript, barely 19, who wrote home to his mother, saying he felt like he was fighting ghosts in these mountains. The conflict in Afghanistan became a focal point of the Cold War. The United States, seeing an opportunity to bleed the Soviet Union, began covertly funding and arming the Mujahideen. The influx of advanced weapons, like the deadly Stinger missiles, shifted the balance of power. It's a chilling thought, how geopolitical games played out on the battlefields of a distant land, fueling a conflict that devastated an entire generation. After a decade of fighting, the Soviets finally withdrew in 1989, leaving behind a nation scarred and unstable. It's a sad truth, how often foreign intervention, even with the best of intentions, can lead to unintended and devastating consequences. But the war was far from over. The weapons left behind, the deep divisions within Afghan society, and the rise of extremist groups would continue to fuel conflict for decades to come. December 1941, Hong Kong, the Pearl of the Orient, a vibrant British colony at the crossroads of East and West, life pulsed with energy, a mix of British colonialism and ancient Chinese traditions. But the whirlwind of World War II was about to engulf this far-flung outpost. A small, under-equipped force of British, Canadian, and Indian soldiers, alongside local volunteers, stood as the only shield against the advancing Japanese Imperial Army. Imagine the courage it must have taken to face such overwhelming odds. Knowing that reinforcements were unlikely to arrive, they prepared for a desperate defense, a David and Goliath struggle against an enemy determined to conquer. On December 8, 1941, just hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese launched their assault. For 18 brutal days and nights, the battle raged. The Japanese assaults were relentless, wave after wave of soldiers crashing against the defenders' lines. Yet, the men of Hong Kong fought back with ferocity and unwavering courage. They repelled attack after attack, inflicting shockingly high casualties on the invading force. One particularly fierce battle raged for the critical Wo Chai Gap, a mountain pass that guarded the approach to the city's heart. Canadian soldiers, many of them untested in battle, held their ground against repeated Japanese assaults, their bravery buying precious time for the defense of Hong Kong Island. But despite their heroism, the defenders were stretched thin, their supplies dwindling, and the enemy's numbers seemed endless. The fate of Hong Kong hung precariously in the balance. On Christmas Day, 1941, Hong Kong fell. The holiday became known as Black Christmas, a chilling reminder of the brutality of war. Imagine spending Christmas under enemy occupation, knowing that the future is uncertain and filled with danger. The city, once a beacon of hope and prosperity in the East, was plunged into darkness. December 1944, the Western Front seemed stagnant. Allied forces were grinding towards Germany, but Hitler had a desperate gamble in mind, a last-ditch offensive in the Ardennes forest that would become known as the BULGE. The German plan was audacious, a surprise armored thrust through the thinly held Ardennes, aiming to split the Allied armies, seize the vital port of Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace. They planned to exploit the element of surprise, using the dense, snowy conditions to their advantage. But the Allies were caught completely off guard. Intelligence had dismissed the possibility of a major German attack in that sector. The initial German onslaught was devastating. American units, particularly those inexperienced, were overwhelmed, suffering heavy losses. The line buckled, forming the characteristic bulge in the Allied front. Despite the initial chaos, pockets of American resistance emerged. Bastogne, a crucial road junction, was fiercely defended by the 101st Airborne. That nuts response to a German surrender demand became legendary. American reinforcements rushed to the front, slowing the German advance. The battle raged with horrific intensity, with casualties mounting on both sides. As the weather cleared, Allied air power could finally be brought to bear, hammering the German advance. Gradually, the German momentum stalled. The heavy casualties and dwindling supplies took their toll. Over 100,000 German soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. After weeks of brutal fighting, the German offensive was decisively defeated. The Battle of the Bulge was the largest and bloodiest battle fought by the U.S. Army in World War II. Over 19,000 American soldiers were killed, and tens of thousands more were wounded or went missing. The fighting claimed the lives of over 80,000 soldiers, German and American combined, showing the sheer brutality of warfare. Ultimately, it was Hitler's last major gamble on the Western Front, failing to change the inevitable outcome of the war. The Bulge, a desperate gamble, a brutal fight, and a haunting reminder of the immense human cost of war. Christmas 2008, in the remote villages of the Democratic Republic of Congo, families gathered to celebrate. but joy would soon turn to unspeakable horror. The Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, a brutal rebel group, launched a series of coordinated attacks, targeting villages celebrating Christmas, their goal, to slaughter and terrorize. Over 865 people were massacred, many hacked to death with machetes and axes, families were torn apart, children were abducted, women were brutalized. The LRA even feasted on the Christmas meals their victims had prepared, sleeping among the bodies in a grotesque display of depravity. The LRA denied responsibility for these horrific crimes. Despite international condemnation, justice has remained elusive for the victims and their families.